Happy Easter and welcome to Noble Reporting. This is your host, Dale Noble, reporting. Coming up, Quasimodo in tears after Notre Dame was hit by hellfire. Labour showed a burgeoning respect for Israel. The Extinction Rebellion held London to a standstill as a number of middle-class hippies disrupted the lives of the employed. Good news for politicians, as scientists made a breakthrough with brain rejuvenation. Trump was found innocent of collusion, again. And there were growing calls to bring down Sargon of Akkad after historic indecency. But first, earlier this week, the majestic cathedral, the Notre Dame, was engulfed in flames. One fireman was injured during the fight to quell the fire, as were two police officers, though you wouldn't have known it from the coverage of other channels. My sympathies go to these individuals and hope for their speedy recoveries. The ancient roof was completely lost in the blaze, with recordings of the spire's collapse becoming an instantaneous photo shot of history. Whilst the structural integrity held firm, it was severely weakened, but many of the treasures that lay within its walls were saved. A miracle to be sure, but how on earth did it start? Investigations are underway to examine the cause, though many have already pointed blame towards the renovators, because these professionals are going to allow for wiring to be exposed and cause potential hazards an hour after they left. There are also unverified video recordings of a distinctively dressed individual wandering the building as the fire raged on. However, these are believed to be doctored and should not be examined any further. Shadow Secretary of Justice Richard Burgon was caught in a web of lies this week after footage of him claiming Zionism is the enemy of peace emerged. This ran counter to a later interview with Andrew Neil, where he stated that it was an allegation made by the Daily Express. After being outed, Richard Burgon issued a public statement in which he apologized for getting caught and thus giving the Daily Express credibility. He is the latest in a very, very long line of Labour representatives to have been scrutinised over his stance on anti-Semitism. His attempted cover-up will serve only to exacerbate the problem in the future, as anti-racism campaigners will claim more individuals are currently obfuscating the truth as well. Labour's woes continued as the Shadow Home Secretary was caught drinking on the TfL. Consumption of alcohol is illegal upon the transport system, but who really cares about it, as it is a ridiculous regulation that few people were aware of before Mrs. Abbott broke it. One of the biggest news stories this week revolved around the series of protests that took place in the centre of London. These were held to promote awareness about the severity of climate change and the lack of action taken on behalf of the British government. So widely supported were these protests that one lady specifically flew in from America to show solidarity with the movement. Mrs. Thompson, aged 60, declared to the protesters, "Sometimes I have to fly, but I don't fly as much as I used to. Where's the hypocrisy? If I could fly cleanly, I would." A strong statement from an elite who has benefited throughout her life from the advancements that have led the human race to its current position, though questions do arise as to why she couldn't show her support over the free software program known as Skype. The message of the protests were lost on most people as they attempted to get to work to pay their bills and put food on the table, only to then be told by celebrities and the middle-class university dropouts that they were the problem for not caring enough, whilst feasts of Mexican avocados, Peruvian quinoa and Indian cashew nuts were handed out. There were rumoured reports that the protests would head to Gatwick Airport, though the climate-savvy Sadiq Khan responded with, no, the police are now involved. Numerous arrests have been made over the course of these protests, though many have wondered where the hell the police have come from due to the inactivity surrounding rising crimes of violent nature, particularly knife crime. These protests continue for the coming week. In the science world, researchers have managed to partially revive pigs' brains hours after death. The findings are significant as they challenge the held belief that the brain is irreversibly damaged mere minutes after the blood supply is stopped. The scientific mumbo-jumbo explaining this process is far beyond my pay grade, but I am reliably informed that this process could cure Alzheimer's and strokes in the future. Questions about the ethics of this study have been raised, with some ethicists arguing for new guidelines, as harvesting organs from brain-dead individuals will now become contentious. Trump once again made headlines after a redacted version of the Mueller report was released. Yet again, he was found innocent of collusion. Don, this is already known. Like, why are we covering it? It's not news. Oh, okay. UKIP hopeful Carl Benjamin has been criticised for sending rape threats to MP Jess Phillips. These come 3 years after the tweets were actually sent and weren't actually advocating rape. In fact, you could argue they were anti-rape threats. And this also comes on the back of the fact that the MP herself claimed to have ignored them. But now that it is politically convenient to raise the issue once more, news organisations began the smear campaigns in earnest. Mr. Benjamin has also been criticised for his handling of the conference held this week, with some citing that adopting a more professional attitude would be endearing. His official response: "Fuck right off, you dirty smear merchants." Before we leave, I'm just receiving news about a series of attacks against Christians in Sri Lanka. Many have been killed at the time of this recording, though details are scarce as of the present. Instead, I would like to simply extend my condolences and sympathies to those affected. That is all for this episode. Thank you for tuning in to Noble Reporting. See you next Sunday.